Hello students, welcome to the lecture on group discussion, and after the lecture we will be able to learn the following objectives. Explain the concept of group, describe the techniques of group discussion, define the formal and informal group, explain qualities needed for group discussion, discuss the group discussion techniques. Let's start with a brief introduction to group discussion. Group discussion, like an interview, is essentially a conversation, not as some would consider an argument. We would find ourselves in a group discussion situation anywhere, informally in a club or peer group, talking casually about a film we liked, a hobby we pursue, or a passion we have. Or we could be a part of a formal group in our organization where we might be discussing some very important business strategy or troubleshooting. Let's discuss about the concept of group. A group is a collection of individuals who have a relation to one another that make them interdependent to some significant degree. As so defined, the term group refers to a class of social entities having in common the property of interdependence among the constituent members. Why create a group? Groups can help us to manage our account or application very efficiently. When we create a group, we can gather similar users together and grant application access or special permission rights to all members at once. The types of group. There are various ways of classifying groups. For example, in terms of their purpose or structure, but two sets of categories have retained their usefulness for both practitioners and researchers. They involve the distinction between primary and secondary groups, planned and emergent groups. Primary and secondary groups. Primary groups are clusters of people like families or close friendship circles where there is a close face-to-face and intimate interaction. There is also often a high level of interdependence between members. Primary groups are also the key means of socialization in society, the main places where attitudes, values and orientations are developed and sustained. Secondary groups are those in which members are rarely, if ever, all in direct contact. They are often large and usually formally organized. Trade unions and membership organizations such as the National Trust are examples of these. They are an important place for socialization but secondary to primary groups. Planned and emergent groups. Alongside discussion of primary and secondary groups came the recognition that groups tend to fall into one of the two broad categories. Planned groups. Planned groups are specifically formed for some purpose either by the members or by some external individual, group or organization. Emergent groups come into being relatively spontaneously where people find themselves together in the same place or where the same collection of people gradually comes to know each other through conversation and interaction over a period of time. Some benefits and dangers of groups. As can be seen from what we have already reviewed, groups offer people the opportunity to work together on joint projects and tasks. They allow people to develop more complex and larger scale activities. We have also seen that groups can be significant sites of socialization and education, enabling people to develop a sense of identity and belonging and to deepen knowledge, skills and values and attitudes. Places where relationships can form and grow and where people can find help and support. Settings where wisdom flourishes. It is often the case that the many are smarter than the few.
I'm Kaushik and I'm back with my thoughts on group discussions and how to conquer the same. Well, in my previous video, I talked about the myths of group discussion, and now I'm going to focus more on the parameters that the companies and even the B schools have been following to determine someone's competency, capability, and the fitment in terms of job at the same time a candidature. So I'm going to talk basically about 4 different parameters that are of utmost importance when it comes to group discussion and rating someone's performance. So we start with the first and the foremost, known as your communication skills. Now communication is not only the ability to give your thoughts, ideate your expressions, it is also about the way you comprehend. So the first principle remains your communication skills, and that is to be complemented by your presentability as well. So the first principle and the parameter on the basis of which you will be adjudged is not only the way you speak, it is also about the way you listen and comprehend others. So always remember that communication skills are of utmost importance when it comes to evaluating your performance. So you should not always speak, rather you also should listen and try to comprehend what others have to say. Second, it's all about your leadership capabilities. Now, when 8 people come to a leaderless group discussion, it is always the priority of the moderator to find out who can emerge as the leader in the group. And then everyone is not a born leader. You have to rather make yourself a leader out of the group discussion. So what is to be done? It is all about, because there's a parameter of selection, you need to emerge as a leader every point in time. So the most important part is not only about your communication and presentation that I just shared right now, it's also about how do you show your leadership traits. So the first is the way you respect others' thoughts. Second, it is all about how participative you get at the time of the conversation. How are you trying to give different dimension to the topic, and the way you are articulating the thoughts also by respecting others' opinions. It is very imperative for you to know that if you really want to become a leader, it is not only that you, whatever you believe in, the others also need to believe in the same. Even if you feel that you're right and others are wrong, you should always, in a very requestive manner and in a very polite tone, should ask for facts and figures, logic and justification. That will make a very strong ground for you as a leader. So don't forget, leadership skills are also very important that you need to showcase at the time of group discussion. Third is about your content. We always say knowledge is power. Content has to be the king. But let's not deny the fact that which topic is going to come to your way, you never know. So if you really want to master group discussions, and if you really want to do well, you need to read, read and read. And it's not only about power of reading, it is also power of sharing that will make you educated and knowledgeable. So remember friends, it is not about that you read articles, newspapers, journals or whatever. You also need to share, because reading and sharing would end of the day will give you a repository of thoughts. And when you are up to the most important battle of your life, I'm very sure of that, if you are well read, it will click on your mind when it matters the most. So always remember that reading should not be a kind of overnight job when you're going for a kind of selection process. It's not an interview. So if you really want to do justice to the topic you are speaking on, you should be well read. So read newspapers, editorials, journals, magazines, so on and so forth. Then again, one more parameter that is evaluated at the time of group discussion is people skill. As it is all about understanding not only individual's performance, but how do you mingle in the group, how do you manage the group, how do you take the group along with you in the due course of action. So the fourth parameter would be typically be called people skill. So it tests typically your ability to connect well with people. We call it interpersonal skills, the way you talk to people, the way you gel with them, the way you understand them, and the way you work and then reach to the conclusion unanimously. So these are the 4 areas that every moderator would focus on, and be it a B school selection process or even when you're going for a company, they would particularly look into these 4 areas. So I just want to tell you in a nutshell, always remember your performance is the key to your interview. So, and to make your performance good, you need to focus primarily in 4 areas: communication skills, leadership skills, content, and most importantly, people skills.
Let's now talk about the techniques of group discussion. This is the initial stage when the group comes together and members begin to develop their relationship with one another and learn what is expected of them. This is the stage when team building begins and trust starts to develop. Group members will start establishing limits on acceptable behavior through experimentation. Forming group. The formation of a group requires 2 ingredients: people enthusiastic about kindness and a meeting place. Where do we find people enthusiastic about kindness? From friends and acquaintances, and possibly even strangers. There may be occasions, for example at a party, a conference and so on, when we make contact with the person who expresses more than a passing interest and kindness when we discuss it. These are the people who will be interested in joining a kindness group. Where will we meet? The meeting place will usually be at home, but sometimes this may not be convenient. If this is the case, investigate where a small room can be hired for 2 hours at a reasonable cost. Try the local council. They normally have rooms at the council chambers as well as community centers. Planning the first meeting. The first meeting should be planned carefully to ensure it is a success even if we have only one other person. Everyone should leave with the feeling that something has been achieved, that there are clear directives on what needs to be done, and everyone is looking forward to the next meeting. First meeting. The first meeting is a getting to know us affair, so it should be simple and brief. Have a clock prominently on display, and about 15 minutes before the meeting is due to end, bring to the attention of the group how much time remains. Keep the conversation focused on what we have chosen to achieve, that is, keep to our agenda. At subsequent gatherings, we may wish to introduce a little ritual in the form of having a candle burning on the floor or on a small table in the middle of the floor and sit the group in a circle around the candle. We may even choose to carry out a short meditation, but make sure all members of the group feel comfortable about such things. One of the groups should take notes. For the first meeting, the agenda might read, everyone introduces themselves, have a snack, sit them down and ask them to give their idea of what they would like to do, write ideas down. Some people are reticent by nature. If we have one in a group, gently prompt them by asking if they would like to add something to what has been said. Decide what. Briefly summarize each suggestion and decide on a short list if there have been a number of suggestions. Decide how. Discuss how we will carry out our acts. For simple acts, this will not be necessary, but at a subsequent meeting, we may decide to organize a small community kind act, where the following will need to be discussed. What materials, objects, services, actions are required. If we need more information or if other people need to be involved, select which one of us will do this. Decide when, decide where. Will we need to find a space to carry out an act of kindness, a room, parking lot, footpath? Delegate someone to investigate. Decide if we wish to involve the media. If so, choose someone to liaise with the media. Decide the date and the time of the next meeting. Close the meeting and have some tea or coffee. If you do not want people to stay too long, make it clear at the start of the meeting that there is a definite finish time for the meeting.
So the best part is to be prepared, to be well practiced and to be well oriented about all the facets of doing GD. So I have written a book which is named as Your Own Group Discussion Handbook, which is available on www.hrquiz.com. You need to simply visit and register yourself and you can grab a free copy for yourself. So the best part is, if you are well oriented towards every situation or possible situation that can arise at the time of any such group discussion, you are at least one step ahead than others, because you know if at all you fall into that situation, how would you cope up with it. For instance, can you ever imagine that you have been a part of a selection process, and which is in form of group discussion, and you have been given a topic by the moderator that you don't have any idea about. So what will you do? Will you stop yourself from speaking, or you will just blabber, whatever comes to your mind? And if you don't have any idea, how would you start developing the idea? If you don't know anything ABC about the topic, how would you start understanding everything about the topic? And this is what I call the art of performing on GD. If you really want to develop that art, that despite the fact you don't know anything about a topic, how do you gain proficiency on the topic, and then you articulate your thoughts in the best possible manner, and then you actually sail through your GD, and then on the ticket to the interview round, you need to refer to this book. And I can tell you that if you read it, your preparation would be always one step ahead than others.
Formal and informal groups. Formal groups are created to achieve specific organizational objectives and are concerned with the coordination of work activities. People are brought together on the basis of defined roles within the structure of the organization. The nature of the task to be undertaken is a predominant feature of the formal groups. Goals are identified by management, and certain rules, relationships, and norms of behavior will be established. Formal groups tend to be relatively permanent, although there may be changes in actual membership. However, temporary formal groups may also be created by management, for example, the use of project teams in a matrix organization. Formal work groups can be differentiated into team groups, task groups, and technological groups. Team groups, these are fairly autonomous groups with broad terms of reference and limited supervisions. The term designates the position to be filled and the allocation of members, and instigates changes as necessary. Task group jobs are defined clearly and individuals assigned to specific positions. The groups have some flexibility over methods of work and the place of work, but otherwise limited discretion. Examples could include many administrative or clerical workers. Technological group members have very limited autonomy to determine change the operational activities. Informal groups. Within the formal structure of the organization, there will always be an informal structure. The formal structure of the organization and the system of role relationship, rule and procedures will be augmented by interpretation and development at the informal level. Informal groups are based more on personal relationships and agreement of group's members than on defined role relationships. They serve to satisfy psychological and social needs not related necessarily to the tasks to be undertaken. Groups may devise ways of attempting to satisfy members' affiliations and other social motivations which are lacking in the work situation, especially in industrial organizations. The membership of informal groups can cut across the formal structure. They may comprise individuals from different parts of the organizations and from different levels of the organization, both vertically and diagonally, as well as same horizontal level. An informal group could also be the same as a formal group, or it might comprise part only of the formal group. Now let's talk about the qualities for group discussion. Individuals will form into groups, both formal and informal, for a number of different reasons relating to both work performance and social processes. Following are some qualities needed for group discussion. Certain tasks can be performed only through the combined efforts of the numbers of individuals working together. The variety of experience and expertise among members of the group provide a synergetic effect which can be applied to the increasingly complex problems of modern organizations. Groups may encourage collusion between members in order to modify the formal working arrangements more to their liking, for example by sharing or rotating unpopular tasks. Group members therefore provides the individual with opportunities for initiative and creativity. Groups provide companionship and a source of mutual understanding and support from colleagues. This can help in solving work problems and also to militate against stressful or demanding working conditions. Members of the group provides the individuals with a sense of belonging. The groups provide a feeling of identity and the chance to acquire role recognition and status within the group. The group provides guidelines on generally acceptable behavior. It helps to clarify ambiguous situations such as, for example, the extent to which official rules and regulations are expected to be adhered to in practice, the rules of the game and what is seen as the correct actual behavior. Let's now discuss about the group discussion techniques. A group discussion is a verbal dialogue and exchange of thoughts and opinions between groups of people. It is a personality test commonly used by institutes where there is a high level of competition. Informal and voluntary gathering of individuals in person through a conference call or a website to exchange ideas, information and suggestions on needs, problems, subjects, etc. of mutual interest. Discussion groups are one of the mainstays of the popularity of Internet. Group discussion is an important tool in the selection process. It is mostly used for selecting candidates for management posts. Here the candidates are divided into small groups. Each group contains 6 to 8 candidates. Each group is given a topic for discussion. They are also given a time limit for discussing this topic. The topic may be a general topic or current topic. Qualities judged in a group discussion, GD. Following important qualities are judged in a group discussion. Initiative. Initiative is the ability to take action without being told. The candidate who starts the discussion has this quality. Subject knowledge. Here the selectors find out the following points: whether the candidates have understood the meaning of the topic of discussion, whether they have proper knowledge about the topic. Here quality is given more importance than quantity. Whether they have proper general knowledge, whether they have original ideas and whether they can develop these ideas logically. Time management. Here the best candidate is the one who expresses all his views within his own time limit, gives other candidates time to express their views, summarizes everyone's views in a few minutes just before the discussion ends. Communication skills. Communication skills are the ability to express ideas clearly and concisely. Leadership skills, the candidate who starts the discussion, fixes time limit for each candidate, maintains the discipline during the discussion, and summarizes the discussion at the end, has got leadership qualities. Conflict handling skills. Sometimes two or more candidates have a heated discussion and start shouting at each other during a group discussion. The candidate who steps in and cools them down has conflict handling skills. Ability to work as a team. The selectors also look for candidates who have the ability to work as a team member. Group acceptance. Selectors look for the candidate who is accepted by the others in the group. They reject candidates who try to dominate others. They also reject those who speak for a long time, not allowing others to speak. Similarly, those who interrupt others repeatedly are rejected. Persuasiveness. Persuasiveness is the ability to influence others by our ideas. It is the ability to sell our ideas to others. This requires sound reasoning, open to other ideas. The selectors also look for candidates who have an open mind and accept good ideas from others. The role of group discussion is commonly reflected in the following not so favorable statements. If we want something done, do it ourselves. Too many cooks spoil the broth. A committee is a group that keeps minutes and wastes hours. Committees lure fresh ideas down a cul-de-sac and quietly strangle them.
A infraero informa. Vargue voo 500. Embarque imediato, portão 4.
Now in the end, let us summarize what we have learned in this lecture. A group is a collection of individuals who have relations to one another that make them interdependent to some significant degree. Primary groups are clusters of people like families or close friendship circles where there is close face-to-face and intimate interaction. Secondary groups are those in which members are rarely, if ever, all in direct contact. They are often large and usually formally organized. Planned groups are specifically formed for some purpose either by the members or by some external individual, group or an organization. Emergent groups come into being relatively spontaneously where people find themselves together in the same place or where the same collection of people gradually comes to know each other through conversation and interaction over a period of time. Formal groups are created to achieve specific organizational objectives and are concerned with the coordination of work activities.